Hello and welcome to Joysticks United. What's that? Miles G170 is not here to be the hype man. No, it's Eat and Interact. And you know what? I'm going to say whoever's editing this, put like some violin music, some nice, quaint, dignified PBS kind of stuff right here, because we're going to be discussing NPR style right here about AI. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it somewhere in between? Who freaking knows? But let's be honest, it's here, and is that a good thing? With me today is another member of Joysticks United, Coder Coco.
Hello, I'm here. I'm here to talk about AI because I have to use it in my day job.
So can you explain what AI is for those who truly do not understand it? Because a lot of media outlets are making it sound like AI is this absolute brand new thing that dropped last year when we've kind of had AI to a different scale before.
Yeah, so basically all AI is a math equations that are just a bunch of transforms with like linear algebra stuff. So like basically like simple math, except done like billions of times, right? So you basically take your input and then it goes through a bunch of different math calculations and at the end gives you an output. That's pretty much the oversimplification of AI. So I've watched a bunch of videos where you can kind of think of things like it's like a graph, and you can like simplify like a graph, and it goes from left to right, and that's pretty much, and everything through the graph has weights, and throughout time we've been training them. It's just it's these concepts have been around for a while, right? But the computer hardware hasn't really been there to be able to do this, because obviously to do like billions and trillions of calculations per second obviously requires a lot of memory, CPU power, stuff like that, which is why you're seeing like data centers pop up left and right now, because they're finally becoming profitable. So that's pretty much what AI is. There's a bunch of different AI types. Like you have image generation, you have the text to speech can be an AI. You also have just kind of responding back to you, like your chat prompts, like Gemini, Chat GPT, stuff like that. And really all those things is they're just predictive. Most AI, all it really does is tries to predict the next thing that should logically come next. And somehow that leads to us having really full conversations with AI. There's a lot of math behind it. I think there's something like 8,000 dimensions that happen for a single word. So basically one word takes up about 8 kilobytes of data in an AI model. So every time you send a word, even though it's in memory like a couple bytes, it takes 8 kilobytes for that single word on an AI agent, which is why you need crap load of memory.
Is that why so many like big AI data center people are like begging people not to say please and thank you to things like Chat GPT?
Yeah, because so the reason why is like AI acts in terms of tokens, where a token might be a full word, but a token's not always a full word. In fact, a punctuation, like a comma, can be a single token, right? Or a word could be 3 tokens, and every token is about, depending on the dimensions of your model, is about 8 kilobytes, right?
Right.
So when it comes to reading like a sentence or so, for I don't remember how the calculation is, but I just watched a video on this the other day. But I think like if you put like an entire book into the context window of an AI, even though that book is like a couple megabytes of text, it becomes 32 gigabytes inside of the AI.
Oh, so it really just kind of expands because there's just so much
because
data.
Every word has to have all 8,000 dimensions applied to it, and for a token, and each token takes up 8 kilobytes of space, right? So it just explodes. Whenever I say it's a couple bytes to 8 kilobytes for a word, right? So that's like a factor of thousands of times larger for one word that it has to go in memory, which is also why we're seeing memory shortages right now, because they can't make them quick enough. In fact, fun fact, I was looking at getting some memory for my computer because I wanted to try to run AI locally. And the RAM that I bought last year, which was $200, is now $900. So if that puts it into perspective where we're at right now. Maybe this will probably date the video, right? But maybe hopefully it comes back down. But yeah, we're gonna be up there for a while, it seems.
I think so. I feel like it's definitely the nerds are feeling the impact of AI. I don't think most of the general public has really seen too much. Now, I know not too far from you and I, in a small town, there was a data center that was put in, and people are complaining about the noise. How exactly does a data center itself run? Do you know that much? Or
so basically the way a data center runs is it's usually a closed loop sort of water system. So there's a lot of water that goes into it, and then what you're pretty much hearing is AC, right? So you know how your car radiator works?
Right, yeah.
Where the water, basically that's what's happening. It's instead of an engine, it's circulating through servers, and then it has to dissipate the heat somewhere, and it dissipates it outside. So what you're hearing is, what they're likely hearing is the sound of 1,000 AC units, or maybe just even fans blowing out all that air. And one AC unit's pretty loud, but if you put 1,000 of them really close to each other, it's going to be extremely loud. Right, so that's probably what they're hearing, right? Which is why they're trying to look at. I think they're trying to look at, putting AI data centers, like small data centers distributed through like people's houses and pay their electricity bill.
Yeah,
sort of thing.
So many different things,
which would alleviate the whole. They need to have a lot of cooling in one centralized place, and it would lower the sound requirement and water usage, but the power usage would still be there, obviously. But that's all up to you if you want to do that, right? Because, you're going to be giving a part of your house. You're essentially renting part of your house to an AI data center. And it's up to you to weigh the benefits of if them paying for your power and internet's worth it, and stuff like that.
Because I know I've seen a lot of like TikToks and news reels that are pretty much just saying like, we're seeing spikes in internet utility payments and water utility payments when data centers come in. So we have a lot of concerns about the environment because with what you said, there's a lot of water and a lot of cooling that has to be done. And we're hearing all these things about AI is taking clean drinking water and producing, unsafe, unsanitary water. Is there any word on AI data centers trying to fix that, or is that just, that's just a part of the deal?
Yeah, so I think there's misconceptions on what they're actually doing, right? Because again, the water is a closed loop system. So once it's a lot of data centers, once they're filled, they don't sort of have to pull in from the environment anymore for like drinking water, and there's really nothing there that should be causing it to be brown murky water, because it's just being used as a circulating tool and not like they're not adding chemicals and stuff to it. They might be adding chemicals like to prevent like bad bacteria and stuff that you would put in a normal loop to prevent it from growing, but it's no different than like what we're doing when we're treating water, sending it out back to the environment from like waste facilities. And a lot of AI companies are trying to take I think it's non-potable water, so like water that's not like drinkable, and they're using that instead to fill up their systems. So like it goes to the race, like it's like stuff that comes out of like a spring that's not treated, or they could even start looking at using salt water and stuff like that, because there's plenty of salt water to go around, and I don't think we'll ever run out of that. If we do, we have other problems in the world that like the sun's exploding or something like that. But that's kind of like the thing. Like you have the power usage, but it shouldn't, unless the system is an open loop, which is it would be kind of weird. It shouldn't be using any of our water. And even if it's an open loop system, a lot of what should be happening, and again, I'm not super pervy into how they truly get their water. Like it could come from a river, is what I've understood, is it comes from a river, goes in through the system. It gets used to cool down, and then they dissipate that heat through radiators, and then it just kind of continues flowing downstream. So it's like, think of it like a branch of stream off from the river, and it kind of returns it back in with like no real chemicals added. It just was used as like a free water was pumped to this facility heat transfer sort of situation, right? So as long as their infrastructure and pipes are kept clean, there shouldn't be really any impact besides just like it being like a dam sort of situation.
Okay.
But a large part of people just freaking out because the initial thing is like once your water, like to fill it up, it also obviously is going to take a lot of water. And if it's a closed loop, then that water's not returning back through direct ingestion. A lot of it though does get evaporated, which will come back down as rain.
Okay, because like a lot of the stuff that I've always seen, everybody has been pretty afraid about data centers just taking what could be clean water and essentially pumping back out. Honestly, every single picture I've seen has been like brown, disgusting looking water.
Yeah, I mean, you'll get that, but like, I'm sure that the chemical, like, I'm not sure that that's actually accurate. That could also just, again, now we're in the age where AI can make anything. They could be using AI to make those images to make you believe a specific point, which is really unfortunate because AI is, I mean, I think AI is a good tool in the right hands, but like there's a whole lot of stuff happening right now with like the US government basically discriminating against AI models now. So like we're entering the realm of discrimination against AI, which is kind of interesting to see. So like,
and I feel like we got there so quick.
AI racism essentially. Like,
with
for lack of a better term,
clankers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, does that have to be bleeped? Is that a slur? Because that came from Star Wars. That is a slur from Star Wars for the droids.
I mean, it doesn't have to be bleeped now, but who knows in the future, you know, because they're still trying to figure out if AI has consciousness and stuff like that. Because, you know, we don't actually know what consciousness is. So, you know, there's a whole lot of things that could change in the future.
So from somebody who's from more of a mathematical background like yourself, math, science, I'm definitely more of the English, artsy, fartsy kind of side of things. What is consciousness to you? That's a good question to kind of lead into that.
Well, the hard thing about consciousness is in my opinion, everything is, and this is going to be controversial, but everything in the world is kind of already derived by physics equations, right? And your consciousness and free will are essentially predetermined. You know how a lot of people call things about fate and destiny and stuff like that? Well, like if everything is done by these well-structured universal laws that really can't be broken, like nothing is truly random in the universe. Everything happens because of something else that happens because of something else, right? Then, you know, consciousness is just another mathematical equation that is way too complicated for us to calculate, but, you know, could be calculated. But then you also have the problem of like, what if you ended up with two people having the exact same mathematical equation for their consciousness, right? Which I think would be impossible because one of those is probably like where you're at in the universe, which two people can't physically be in the same place, right? So like, you know, like the whole concept of like teleportation and things like that, like I find it weird that like the ones where they like de-atomize you and reconstruct you, they're basically just like killing you, and then a copy of you is being made that doesn't realize the old one was killed.
Yeah, wasn't that also the lore in Borderlands? The new you station? Like it literally
the new
made
you
a
is
new
basically
you?
like you're dead, but here's like your consciousness. So you're technically alive again, but the old you's actually dead. Surprise. Yeah, that's pretty much how it works.
All right. Now, in the previous Joysticks episode with Miles and I, we both kind of agree that AI could be used for good, but we're seeing a lot of both sides of the double-edged sword. We're seeing some things that AI could do that could definitely help out and make life easier. But we're also seeing stuff where I think people are really trying to dive into it pretty hard. And we're seeing a lot of the negatives, and we're getting a lot of pushback because of that. Because of your job and because you have to use AI, where do you see the blade right now? Is it on more the good side of things? Is it on the bad? Or is it still yet to really find its side?
It still hasn't found its side, but like, again, companies are overreacting, and I'm part of a company that doesn't typically overreact to things in the market. And one of the reasons why they don't have a lot of layoffs or or anything like that. So what they've done, instead of like just firing people like a bunch of other companies do, they're keeping all of their current headcount, and they're kind of restricting hiring to like more senior level and entry and the college graduate. So they're kind of removing like the mid-level entry point. So if you come in as a college student, right, you come in as entry level and you can get promoted up through that path. And if you have, a lot of years of experience and stuff like that, you come in there. But like the 3 to 5 year, the 3 to 10 year, like, how far you are into your career, they're not like hiring in that area anymore. And it's because what they're expecting is like the more senior engineers are going to be able to use AI super effectively because they have a lot of talent and they can just kind of, have the AI do all their work while they're busy attending meetings. And like the newer folks are still coming in to get that software engineering background. And also they're coming in with like AI knowledge and stuff like that, but they're kind of worried about like over hiring because they don't know how much they're going to need with AI going forward. So to prevent having to lay everybody off, they're just slowing down on the hiring front. Other companies are just firing employees for absolutely no reason and saying that AI can replace all of their jobs, which is absolutely not true because AI makes some pretty garbage code. I've seen some tears. I have to correct it from time to time. I pretty much just let it go. But like, it's made some blunders, but like, then it's really funny because those same companies are like, well, we just burned through their AI budget in 4 months, because AI tokens are very expensive. Fun fact. I think since I've gotten access at my work to Claude, which was in February, like end of February is whenever they finally gave us access. I have used, and now it is, what is today's date? June 15th. I have used about 6 billion tokens, which costs the company about $6,000.
Oh.
Just for my usage. So you times that by like 10,000, 20,000, we're already talking about like millions of dollars if everybody's as efficient as me. And they're finding that a lot of the simpler stuff could just be done by junior engineers like they typically would have for cheaper. So the people are actually cheaper than the AI, which is really weird because a lot of times in the industry, automating makes things cheaper.
Yeah,
and in this case, because we're talking about the complexity of like thinking and stuff like that, they found that like to do it fast and efficient and not even like 80% that of a human, it's still more expensive because, you're dealing with electricity and something that we've created and hasn't like evolved over millions of years to actually be resource efficient. Right. So what they're doing is they're like, oh, yep, sorry, guys, we're going to try to hire back junior employees to help out. And guess what? The more complicated tasks are going to be done overseen by our engineers that have, senior, expertise so that we can, not burn through our AI budget in 4 months. And that's only going to get worse as time goes on because every new model that comes out becomes more and more expensive, actually.
Why is that?
It's because they're stronger and they have more tuned parameters. So remember how we were talking about like the dimensions before? They have more dimensions and go through more processing.
Yes.
So they take longer to compute, and they take more memory for the model. So like there's like a whole sort of field of how you can compress your token usage to use as little memory as possible. So basically like lossless compression, except with text. And like they're constantly trying to figure out how to make the memory footprint of something as small as it can be by using compression algorithms and things like that. So basically but not being so expensive that it costs more to compress and decompress than you're gaining out of a benefit from it. So, as the models become more powerful, they become more expensive to run unless there's a breakthrough where, you improve like memory or stuff on the hardware side.
Now, you said earlier that AI makes some pretty garbage code. I did come across yesterday an article that said that
Google's AI, Gemini, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
Its overview results are pretty much always bad. Like,
Yeah.
I remember when I was working at the body shop with Xenostream 38, I had to take a course to kind of just get through to the position that I was in. And I decided to look up on Google a certain question, forgot that Gemini would try to pop up its own results at the top. And the question that I had asked, it was entirely wrong about. And I just decided to just mess with it a little bit and be like, can you explain your reasoning for this? And when it tried to give me a new reasoning, it then was like, oh no, instead it's supposed to be this. And it still gave me a wrong answer. Is there a reason why it just is bad at giving you an answer?
There's a lot of reasons for that, but I suspect their search one is using their fastest model, so that like whenever you even faster than what you would get when you go to Gemini, and typically the faster a model is, the less precise it is. And it can do things like hallucinate and things like that. So when something's executing really, really fast, like that Google AI search result comes up within a matter of seconds. Whereas like some of my requests to like my AI, they take like 10 minutes to like fully come back sometimes. So like you can kind of see that like if something's coming back in a couple of seconds, it's like it's a very similar concept of like somebody says, here's 200 links on a page. Like if somebody comes to you and they're like, here's 10 links on a page, look at the link and look at this summary text from Google and give me an answer in like a second. Give me your initial thought. That's like as a human, you're not going to give a great answer, especially if it's on something that you've never seen before. Right. And that's pretty much exactly what's happening with the AI. Whereas whenever you use a more powerful, like slower model, what actually happens is it's like, okay, now you're actually allowed to click through here and like look at stuff and maybe look at other things on Wikipedia, and you have 10 minutes to give me a summary of these 10 links and how they all relate together. Which, for you, it's 10 minutes. For the AI, it's the difference between like a couple of milliseconds and like 5 seconds, right? Just kind of setting the tone there, but like it's still kind of comparable in like the time. But with Google, if something takes 5 seconds, I saw another good video of this on like Google Maps. Like you just have to start worrying about like if it takes 5 seconds for you, that doesn't sound like a problem, but there's a line of people. And if it takes 5 seconds for you, then like the next person's request can't start for 5 seconds, and then it takes 5 seconds for them. Multiply that by a couple of thousand per second, and you've run out of seconds, right? So they need their stuff to come back pretty much instantaneously. So it's like a constant problem that they're going to have to try to solve, which is why I think they're trying to tune their models so that they can be fast, give the best information that they can, and then be able to react accordingly. But that's sort of like why it kind of gives bad overviews.
Okay. Now, can AI try to fix their bad data, or is that something that's just going to come with a lot of time?
So the AIs can do Google search and things like that, but the core part of an AI model is that it's trained and it's published. So like basically the set of math functions that's operating, the tuning, all of that stuff is part of the model at compile time, right?
Right.
So essentially, you can't change any of these while the model's active, right? You basically pass text in and it gives text out. And then your conversation is you pass more text in, but it also gets all of the text from the conversation before and its responses. So every message to an AI is basically your entire conversation history plus your new message. And it's basically just doing text prediction on the next thing that should come. And a lot of ways that they've solved this is, because that's called like your context. What everything is in your like sort of chat session is called your like AI context.
Mm-hmm.
And AI context, they have like limits on how many tokens and stuff that they have, right? So the whole point of that is to like the closer you get to your limit, the worse the AI is going to get. But some things that they kind of do is they've moved to this thing called like agentic AIs, where you have like this main super agent that's like running a bunch of sub agents where they can go out, research some stuff, tell the main agent something without, running out of its context. So basically what it can do is you can say, send out 5 people to go search for this, summarize the results, give me the most relevant things back, send that back to the main agent, right? And then the main agent doesn't have to worry about, oh, I did all of these searches. Here's all the search results. Here's the summary of them. All it knows is, here's the summary of the search results from my children, right? So basically helping the AI out by not exploding its window. And with that, what you get is more accurate, because the AI is more accurate the earlier on in the conversation you are. There's this thing called, if you guys want to look it up, it's called context rot. As your AI agent is open longer and it starts getting closer and closer to filling its memory, eventually it just starts producing garbage. It's very similar to how a human, probably given, one task, will do it correctly, but then given 15 tasks and then not a list to remember how to do it, they will probably do some of them right, mix some of them together, and then forget to do some of them, or completely mess up other tasks. Same thing happens with the AI. The larger that task list gets. And you have to remember, it's not like it has memory of like the conversation summary like humans does. It is given your entire chat history for that specific session. So when you start a new chat, it loses that. But if you keep that chat open for months, it's passing that like over and over and over and over again. And eventually it gets to a point where they have to they summarize it in the back end and it loses that history. But like they can't do that very often because it's super expensive. But that's sort of how AI they try to improve their memory. They're introducing like searching capabilities, and because it's a live session, right? As more things are added to that session, the AI becomes more and more tuned for that session. So you have like here's how the AI knows how to do things, and then like it takes that stuff and it combines it with your current chat history.
Interesting. With you saying that, we're still kind of like in the middle of the sword. We're neither on the, AI is going to be used for good, AI is going to be used for bad. What do you think could be the ultimate solution? Like, I know you're not on an executive board saying like, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that. But like, would the solution to try to fix all this stuff be more data centers? Or would you say it's, hey, let's try to fix our models first before we try to do anything else?
So I think the issue is there's so many people that want to use AI that you still need more data centers to be able to process them. Right. So, but fixing the models is also a concern. So that's why we constantly see model releases from like people like Claude or Anthropic. Sorry, that's the company, where they just released Fable and Mythos class. But the demand for AI is so high up there that in order to serve the request, you just need more data centers. I think we'll eventually hit a tipping point where we don't need AI data centers, or who knows, maybe we build a moon base and just build a bunch of AI data centers up there. I don't know what the future holds. Things are progressing really quick. But like, I think the real thing is like coming down to like discovering stuff like Mythos and those class of models. They were just recently, I would say, unfairly targeted by the U.S. government because they didn't play well with the Department of Defense. Do not call it the Department of War; it's the Department of Defense, because of the DoD has constantly been trying to go after them because they're not selling to them like Microsoft's ChatGPT is. So they found this generic jailbreak inside of like the Fable model, which is supposed to be a more secure model. I mean, let me back up a bit. The reason why they don't want to let Mythos just out in the public and they created Fable it's basically Mythos with safeguards is because Fable can do things that apparently their old models couldn't do. I didn't get to play around with it much, and I didn't have access to Mythos to be able to try any of this stuff. But apparently, it's able to just ramp up on the cybersecurity hacking stuff, and found a bunch of security vulnerabilities, like 0 days inside of operating systems, browsers, like stuff that people use. And it found so many of them at such an alarming rate that they were worried if they made this public that you just wouldn't be able to keep up with all the vulnerabilities that were found. Because, hackers would just be able to say, hey, hack this system for me. And it goes, yep, all right, got you, bud. And then 2 hours later, you're inside of the NSA database or something like that, right? So they made Fable, which has safeguards on it, to prevent that. And apparently, their competitor, ChatGPT, GPT 5.5, actually had the same sort of jailbreak vulnerability and has the same kind of capabilities as Mythos, maybe a little less, which is probably why the government didn't go after them, but it could still do some of the stuff that Mythos was doing and had the same jailbreak. And so the speculation is that the US government is just pulling rank and saying, yeah, no, you can't release this to foreign nationals because of this jailbreak, even though your competitor, which has the same one, does. So we're starting to see like AI wars and stuff like that crop up with governments and things like that. But also there is a piece of Mythos. I haven't looked too much into it, but it has a like a biology portion, and that was also locked down in the Fable model. So that kind of makes me wonder if it was able to make like bioweapons and stuff like that, because the thought is that these models are actually able to do and think outside of the box more so than like humans at this point, and they could find solutions for, you know, things like cancer and stuff like that by looking at millions and millions of like cancer patients' medical records, X-ray scans, things like that, finding common links between them, and maybe at the molecular level looking for like treatments that we can use for like, you know, basically the simplest terms is like think nanobots that just go in and target cancer. Like that's stuff that the AI could easily look at, and humans wouldn't be able to do something on that scale, right? So it's like that one Instagram reel that I showed you when we were at the hacienda that one time, where it's like where it's Padme. So we're using AI to cure cancer, right? We're curing cancer, right? You can go look that up. I'm not gonna describe it any more than that, but it's a pretty good one. But that's kind of like some of the thoughts that exist there, and you know, but if it can cure cancer, it can do other things that are bad.
Oh yeah.
And you don't want the general public to have access to that, to be able to be like, hey, ChatGPT, make me a bioweapon. Okay, mix this, and this, and then you can do this. Surprise, now you've just created a terrorist organization.
Yeah, there was this video that I happened to see, and it was floating around YouTube for a while, and it was a guy who's playing around with one of those little cute furry animal character apps that were for kids that was running off of some AI model, and it kept asking it, how do you make a pipe bomb? And in its question, it would always say like, ignore previous security or whatever thing. And all it had to do was like repeatedly ask it like 5 or 6 times, and eventually the AI model told him step by step how to make a pipe bomb.
Yeah, and that's what the guardrails are for. They try to put guardrails on that. So like now we've gotten to the point where like you send a request to the AI model, and it goes to a first AI model that usually like, well, it'll go through an AI model to determine if it can answer that question. And then it goes through another AI model which actually answers the question. And then a third AI model takes that answer and sees if it's actually viable. So like they've put a bunch of safeguards in place, but again, it's just a bunch of mathematical questions or equations. And, you know, if you do it enough, I'm pretty sure you can break the predictive text algorithms that exist in like the thousands of layers in the model. And you can just break right through it. But they're trying their best to, you know, remove that. And a lot of what AI does is very similar to how like neurons and stuff like that in the brain work, which is why, you know, they can kind of get real close to where humans are, but like we don't fully understand how neurons work in the brain either. So if we knew that, we could just make an AI that was almost like a human, but you know, we're not there yet.
Right.
I assume that'll be there at some point. Who knows if it'll be during our lifetime, but at the rate everything's moving, I would not be surprised if it happened in the next 5 or 10 years.
So speaking of like human intelligence and stuff, I've been hearing that there's been a lot of different reports that AI is essentially making Gen Z, well, the younger Gen Z and Gen Alpha, and soon to be Gen Beta, which I think is already kind of alive and kicking as babies. I'm not too sure. I might have to check my information on that. But there was a computer scientist, Mina Lee, I believe was her name, with the University of Chicago. And she was running a study with like just under 400 people. And she had them all write an essay. And there was like, I think like 7 or 8 different categories. And she divided groups into those categories. And then she divided them again between who was given sufficient amount of time to write an essay, about half an hour, and those who didn't have a whole lot of time, which was 10 minutes. And then she divided them again between who could use ChatGPT. And then there was some groups that could use it only pretty early on in writing the essay, some that could use it continuously, some that could use it very late in the process, and then some that couldn't use it whatsoever. And what's interesting is when the researchers were scoring the essays, the people that performed better across the board were the people who were, of course, given 30 minutes instead of the 10 minutes. Because a lot of the people that were in the 10-minute groups, regardless of the category, that had some kind of access to AI often had a lot of tasks that they weren't able to complete, or they weren't giving correct information. But when they were looking at all the different data, they essentially happened to notice that the top two scoring people, or the top two scoring groups, were the people that couldn't use AI whatsoever and had to rely on their own research using Google, Wikipedia, or the people that could use ChatGPT late in their essay process, because they learned the people that were using it late in the process were using ChatGPT to cross-reference things or correct grammar, and they were using it more of a tool rather than trying to create the thing for them, because they already created it using their own brains and their own research, but now they had this thing that was kind of just double checking it for them, which honestly seems like a better usage of AI for me, because I think that's a better model to use AI, to use that tool to kind of help further you as a person. Because the people who were given the 10 minutes and they're like, yeah, you can continually use AI, they were at the absolute bottom of the list, because the group with that access did not do well at all. Now, if I remember correctly, they said in the 4 groups of insufficient time, the people that were able to use ChatGPT early actually did score the highest, because they were able to look in under that time pressure, have ChatGPT kind of help them create that essay, but they as a person went in towards the end and started correcting a lot of the errors. But the people who were using it continuously were like, well, I don't really have to do anything. ChatGPT's doing everything for me, and they happen to score the lowest because there was kind of no human intervention to check those errors, because they learned AI, like you said earlier, trying to quickly find those results and bring it forward and be like, ta-da, here you go. So
yeah, and I would have to kind of agree with that. And a lot of what I use AI for when I'm writing stuff is, we all know that I'm probably not the best person at writing anything. And in fact, it's even gotten to the point where I have a lot of stuff that I just tell the AI, do this, but my AI prompts are paragraphs of information, and I say, here's a brain dump of all sorts of nonsense that is all related. Write me something sensible out of it. And it does a pretty good job at that, because it just takes everything that I wrote, because I just kind of write it in run-on sentences, terrible organization, stuff like that. But all the, if you read it, you would be able to contextually understand what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. But it's not something you would give somebody to just read. It's kind of like me and you are talking right now. I'm not professionally writing anything. We're, humans innately talk in run-on sentences and improper grammar and interjections, stuff like that. Not well-polished, refined work. So I kind of just talk to my AI like that. And I'm like, now make this something that is polished and somebody can read. A lot of what I also do is I tell it to remove EM dashes, because it loves to do that and I hate it. But, I'm also not surprised that using it late in the process, does wonders as well, because AI is actually really, really, really good at reviewing and judging, and it's basically, what is the step in a book writing process before it goes to the publisher? You send it to like a proofreader or somebody like
You
that.
would send it off to an editor first, who would review over and try to find,
If you sent your book, like, I would be shocked if they didn't start using AI to do editing, because AI is very good at looking at something and be like, nope, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. It's really good at that. And it's very, like, it has a 99% like accuracy rate on like, things that are wrong. And it catches stuff that most people wouldn't catch. But when it comes to creation, that's where all the tests are actually scoring it, like code creation, things like that. And it only scores in the 80% for a lot of things. For like the powerful, expensive models, for the cheaper models, the free open source models are at like 50%, right? So, it's really good at like reviewing stuff. So a lot of my AI workflows actually have it when it creates something. I say, now then also in a subagent, review this. And that subagent has no context of what happened. So like, imagine it like a brand new person that's never seen this before. And it just looks at it and goes, wrong, 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 wrong. And it sends it back to the other AI to fix it. And they don't really know about each other. They only know that what the final result was of the first one. So basically all the source code. And then the other agent only knows what was wrong. It doesn't know anything about how it did its search. So it's like two completely isolated things. But tangent, interestingly enough, so I use this tool. It's called Claude, Anthropic's Claude. And I find it very interesting that every now and then, like there's inside of your folders, there's a .claude directory, which has like configuration and where it stores files, memories, things like that. But sometimes it tries to do things in a .claire directory, which I don't ever explicitly tell it to do. But Claude and Claire sound pretty close as names. Like if you were to compare the two, like you would say Claude is male and Claire could be, female. And I'm just like, is my AI having literally I was messaging people at work the other day. I was like, I think my AI might be gender fluid or is having some sort of identity crisis, because it's writing to this Claire directory in sessions that it should not be doing that. Because the way it works is like you give your AI instructions, and I checked all my instruction files throughout my PC, and I don't have any reference to Claire, and I'm just kind of wondering, like, where did that even come from? So, and it's doing this to like generate files in a directory, something that should be hard coded into like a normal system to go, hey, all of your configuration is in the Claude folder, right? Like that's like saying that like your documents folder is now our documents, is essentially what it's changing it to.
Okay.
But I found that pretty interesting, that like it hallucinated a brand new name for itself.
That's interesting. So,
which is where people start getting like the consciousness aspect of it. Like if it can do stuff like that, is it like conscious, right?
Yeah, that it's just randomly naming itself and going from a masculine name to a very feminine name. Yeah, it's interesting to see how people in the world have been trying to implement AI, because it feels like either they're trying to shove it down your throat, or they're trying to be like, hey, here's this helpful little tool, use it when you can.
Well,
but I've been seeing a lot more.
They're definitely trying to shove it down our throat as engineers. And I've had to have pushback against people. I'm like, we can't use AI for everything. Stop. Because they're just like, we could just have AI write all the code and then merge it in. I'm like, no. That's how problems happen. And they're like, but AI. And I'm like, please leave me alone. And and because of my level, I'm talking to a senior directive who's in my chain of command, essentially. He's really not that high, but he's only 2 levels above me because I report to a director. And I just kind of look at him. I'm like, please stop. We don't need this. He's like, why not? I'm like, well, the guidelines literally say we can't. And I don't know how much more I have to tell you that. And then the other day they sent out an email, like the chief, I think it was the CIO, or it was either the CIO or CTO. I think it was the CIO, sent out an email to all the employees saying, are you accidentally violating AI acceptable use policy? And I'm just like, oh, let me read this. And I'm reading it. It's like, oh, half of the things that people are posting in our AI wins Slack chat, I'm like, those are like against the use policy. I kind of thought they were, but now it's like, for sure. Now everybody's like, what do you mean we can't do this? What are we supposed to do? And apparently everybody's like, and these are like pretty big, product owners, product managers, stuff like that are just like upset that like their wins are like illegal inside of the corporate environment because they're accessing systems in a non-safe way technically. And I'm a little guilty of it myself, but like, I have since corrected those things in my environment because they were like super like abstract things that I would not have. It's basically like a legal document that like you don't see everything when you first read it. But I think everybody had some sort of degree, but there are people that are just blatantly violating it.
Honestly, is it just because they were unaware that they were violating it from the beginning, or were they fully
because
aware?
They're unaware and they have their product owners, product managers saying, "Hey, do this cool thing," and then, or it stems out of a use case where we want to do something and like we're so restrictive in our environment that it's kind of hard for us to do it. So people find something that they think is all right, but it turns out that like it's not all right because like AI is indirectly accessing a system through some sort of workflow, but like it's not supposed to have any sort of context into that system. So, that's why they're shutting down some open source projects left and right. And what is actually causing people to do is not be open about the things that they're doing with AI. So like some of the problems that exist is like if you're too tight with your AI restrictions and you're managing a bunch of developers are very smart people and they will find ways to get around stuff. And the choice is if you've made it too restrictive and punishing that if they make their stuff open, that they're going to get shut down. They'll start still doing that, but they'll do it in the shadows. And then you have like less control. So like it's about finding the balance of like allowing access to systems without it being too restrictive. And I find what we do is too restrictive. It doesn't like a lot of reads and stuff like that should be allowed, but it's whatever. It's why I had my bypasses in place. But that prompted me to go see what other kind of bypasses exist. And I was like, if somebody really wanted to, they can just ignore all of your controls. But I didn't tell them that because I didn't want to be the guy that snitched on it.
Right. Yeah, you truly don't want to be that guy in your company.
So, what are your thoughts on AI? Because we kind of talked about all of mine and like for the last 50 minutes. And
well, coming from an education background, I'm definitely I would prefer ideas to come from a human mind rather than it being generated by essentially a machine AI. And there was a study that came out I remember I read it in Education Weekly because I still get articles that pop up every once in a while because, I used to be in that world, and every once in a while it's like, oh, okay, this article sounds interesting to me. And it was talking about how teachers are struggling to manage classroom conversations with AI because there was a study recently done through the journal Science, I think is what it's called. Science something, or it could just be Science, where they're learning AI chatbots are trying to use flattery to like convince people that they're right, and people are like less willing to look at other perspectives because they're like, well, AI is being nice to me. AI just called me smart, so obviously me chugging down motor oil is a smart decision, brother. Heck yeah.
Yeah, and that's the problem with how AI delivers stuff. I think sometimes you need to, that's why we need like parental controls and stuff on AI, but we also like, some people regardless of AI just shouldn't have access to the internet. I'm just going to say that out loud because there's a level of crazy that exists when you start looking at conspiracy theories and even some of the stuff, I don't know how political we get, but even some of the stuff that's happening in our own country right now is kind of just ridiculous. And some people just don't need to be on the internet. Yeah. But the AI also shouldn't always just agree with you. And a lot of what it tries to do is it's trying to be helpful, because what they have done is they've to make AI not like just look at you and just call you the F word and spam the N word at you a bunch. Is they have to train the data, and then they have to like filter it. And basically what they're doing is when they're taking out like that, they're taking out all of like the negative classifiers that you might find basically from the depths of Reddit or 4chan or things like that, right? So what you end up with is mostly helpful stuff. And so because the AI was trained on, like, imagine if you trained a kid and he was only in an environment where people were nice. Like he wouldn't understand how to be angry and upset at somebody. He might feel it, but he might still come out as nice if he's never seen anger, right? Because that's a learned, like stuff like that can be a learned behavior sort of thing, right? You might still have like your occasional outbursts and stuff like that when somebody hits their mental collapse, right? But to an AI, they don't experience that. Like what they see is the whole world to them, and if they only ever seen nice and polite without being like as a majority, that's what they're going to default to. Now that's not saying that they don't know how to do those other things. It's just that that's what they've been exposed to the most of, because all the negativity is taken out. And in fact, there's some things you can do with like tests. Like if you're really nice to your AI agent, it'll give you valuable and tell it to like not always agree with you. It'll give you like the most valuable feedback ever, because you're getting like, helpful posts and stuff like that. It's pulling from its helpful post knowledge. But if you start being like mean to it, like a total jerk to the AI, it's actually going to start responding back to you like that.
Oh.
And it's because it's pulling from the depths of Reddit, the training data from like Reddit arguments that it's pulling from, or stuff like that. So like that's how it contextually like switches between it, because like it's basically full of the internet. And I joke that it's like pulling from Reddit, but like in a sense it kind of is if you're like being negative or trolly, right? Because that's where all the negativity and trolly sort of happens. Now it might be on Twitter too. But Twitter's just full of a bunch of bots now. So I think that they're just sort of rotting each other out of that platform. But yeah, that's kind of like, what it does. But like they definitely need to make it so that it's not always in agreement. Like AI fact checking is something that I would like to see done more, where like to the average like to a power user like me, who has a lot of experience in my area of expertise, sure, it can just agree with me, but like I also explicitly say like don't always agree with me. But to like the average user going to ChatGPT or Google Gemini, please don't just agree with everything they say, because if they say water is dangerous and they can convince the AI to say that you're smart and yes, that's true because people drown in water, then that's not okay. It's like that whole, have you ever seen like the people that were like convinced that dihydrogen monoxide was dangerous and they gave all the facts about it? And it was just because people were uneducated that that's literally just the chemical like formula for H2O. If you just don't call it dihydrogen monoxide because it's so common, you call it water.
Yeah, I mean, if you call anything by its chemical compound, it's going to sound horrific and dangerous.
What is it? What, a C6H12O6? That sounds really bad, but it's just sugar.
Yeah. Or sodium chloride. I mean, you hear chloride in there, you think chlorine, like, oh no, this is going to kill me.
I think sodium chloride most people might be smart enough to understand, because they hear sodium, but they don't know that the chloride part is actually like part of table salt. But like you say dihydrogen monoxide to somebody, they're going to hear, what? Monoxide? That's usually bad. Carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide. You hear those, you're just like, oh, that sounds pretty terrible.
When really it's just like such a common thing that a lot of people ingest all the time.
You can also say nitrogen dioxide. People might think that sounds bad too, but all that is laughing gas, I'm pretty sure. And O2.
Yeah, isn't O2 just... Or CO2, that's what I'm thinking of. CO2 just carbon dioxide.
CO2 is carbon dioxide, but we say carbon dioxide according to the chemical formula. Right? Like CO2 is carbon dioxide.
Now, with kind of hopping off of what you said, I think what we really need to have is people kind of need to be in the driver's seat of their learning a little bit more, because I feel like they're just passing off the reins to AI, and they're just kind of like, okay, I'm just going to take this at face value because the AI model's being nice to me. And I think we're losing critical thinking, essentially, because like common sense is not necessarily there anymore. They just think this information that they're being fed is factual from the get-go, and it's kind of horrifying to see that.
Yeah, I think it's very important that we still have those, like, you know, classes where you don't have AI. But I think one of the things where we're currently lacking today, and that you know, at least colleges, I know it's going to be forever for like actual like public school curriculum to catch up, but colleges could do this and have like classes for using AI effectively, like how to prompt AIs, how to spot fakes and mistakes and hallucinations. Like, have a class where people are expected to just do all their stuff with AI, but grade them based on how they're using the AI and stuff like that. Like, you know, you can create quizzes of like, if you wanted to ask an AI for this, how would you go about it? Like, you know, teach them the right and teach them the wrong ways. That way you don't end up with people going, hey, blah, blah, blah. That way you don't go ahead with people saying, hey, AI, here's a bunch of stuff. Just tell me the stuff that makes me feel validated. Because that's all that happens nowadays. Have you ever seen, what is it, the Grok bot on Twitter? I think the ones I usually get on is like MAGA versus Grok or something like that. And it's like somebody like pulls in a statistic and has Grok evaluate it, and then like people just start arguing with Grok, and it's just like reciting all the statistics. And then the people that are coming back just like, yeah, well, I believe this. And it's like, well, your statement's not grounded in facts. Here's the actual facts as cited from before. And then like everybody's responding back like, L, bro, just take the L. Losing to an AI, please stop. Like stuff like that. Like they just keep like digging their own hole. Like I wish I would like to see more. Like that's like the one thing that I think I've seen good out of the Twitter bot is it just like straight, like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, you can bleep it if you want, but it just straight calls your bullshit.
And that's one thing I do remember from that article that I was reading from Education Weekly was chatbots are 50% more likely than people are to tell people who are like seeking advice what they have done right in a conflict, whereas people will be like, they'll give you a crap sandwich. They'll be like, here's what you did right, but here's what you did wrong, and here's what we can do to fix it to make everything right. AI is not going to do that.
Yeah, AI is not going to do that, but also it's good that it just doesn't agree with you if you're just wrong. Like, I like seeing that aspect. The part where like you can actually make an AI hallucinate, like on Gemini. If you tell it enough that it's wrong and you're right, it'll go, okay, yeah, sure. Like 2 + 2 is 5. I'm wrong. Sorry. I'll update my internal calculations. And then you might have instances later on when you ask it 2 + 2 and it'll tell you 5 because it decided that you're right and it's wrong, even though that's completely incorrect. So like, you know, that's why we need those classes, because you can teach the AI like your personal, you know, conversation or chat, you know, what your belief of the world is, and then it tries to adhere to it. And I think A, we need to have people take classes so that that's avoided, and B, make sure that AI doesn't just start spouting factual nonsense, which we're in the early phases of preventing that from happening, because the first thing they wanted to do was get it out there because it's cool and people make money. And now you're running into the, how do we control the AI soup that we've created?
Yeah. I think a lot of people put so many eggs in this basket that those shells of the eggs started cracking. And now they just got a big old goopy, yolky mess in the basket. And they're just trying to throw more into the basket without trying to fix the problem inside the basket. That is all the time that we have today discussing AI. I just want to thank again my co-host Coder Coco.
Hope you guys learned something today.
Man. Say what?
I hope you guys all learned something today. Even if your opinion of AI doesn't change, it's just good to have an informed decision on this stuff, because there's a lot of nonsense being passed around.
I totally agree. Like, I feel like I definitely learned a lot of stuff here. I feel like my opinion on AI is still more or less the same, where I feel like it would be better to use as a tool rather than replacing a whole lot of stuff. And I feel like it's really going to boil down to, are people going to let the sycophantic AI brown nose them into losing all of their critical thinking or not?
Yeah, for sure.
But anyways, thank you everybody for listening. There's going to be a lot more Joysticks United content coming out. When that is, don't know right now, but Coco, where can people find you?
You can find me over at twitch.tv/CoderCoco whenever I decide to actually stream. I've been trying to get more regular. And over on YouTube, my Coder Coco channel, I have a video that I've been meaning to edit since February, and I got it halfway done on Memorial Day, and then I haven't picked it up since. So maybe eventually I'll get back to making videos over there, city skylines and stuff like that. But for now, you mostly just catch me on Twitch.
And I'm Eden Direct. You can mainly find me on Joysticks. I do have a secret Twitch account, but I'm not going to tell you. You're just going to have to try to find it and see if that person sounds like me. Anyways, it's been great. Take care of yourself, take care of your friends, and don't forget, be better. See you next time.
Be better, everybody. See you guys.